Alrighty, Massey. Alrighty, welcome back to Divas, Diamonds, and Dollars podcast. We empower career women, business owners, and late bloomers with the tools and strategies for living a bolder, fuller life. Each week, we talk business, personal finance, and leadership. So follow us to get ahead and succeed at a higher level. Gentle persons, we are your hosts, Larisa Troche, and
I am Cecilia Benford.
so think you're ready to buy a home? Are you sure? I hope you've been paying attention because the times they are a changing. Uh, you know, I don't know if it's true, but I said it. There's an art to buying a home, and if you do it right, you will have many happy years ahead. So, where to start? Well, today, why don't we just talk about the money considerations? There are key uh, financial considerations that you have to think about from the down payment. And make sure that you ask your realtor if you are qualified for any special loan programs, whether it's a first-time home buyer program, whether it's a point buy down, or all the things, because now lenders, they're trying to drum up some business. They are getting creative with their offers. So make sure you ask copious questions. And escrow fees, the rough estimate is about 3% of the cost of the home, such as prorated property taxes, title insurance, inspection reports, and other things that folks just make up on the fly, it feels like. But again, um, if I didn't say so, I said, first of all, I said the down payment, you can do three to you can actually do 3%, but the traditional is 20%. So wherever you fall in that range, again, with the special programs, don't forget. But the escrow fees are about 3% of the cost. But on the other hand, if the seller is motivated, make sure you ask if the seller is willing to cover any of your escrow costs. You got to ask questions, folks. And then, well, you know what? You are now responsible for paying the buyer agent's commission. So, if you have the urge to balk at the idea of paying for a service that many assumed was free, and it never was, we have a lot to talk
Mhm.
about. We want you to know how buyers benefit from paying the realtor's commission. So, you may be wondering, well, why can't I just go to the listing agent? Well, I'll tell you why you shouldn't do that, gentle persons. What many people don't know is that the listing agent actually works for the seller. The listing agent works for the seller. And because he works for the seller, the agent is legally obligated to act as a fiduciary for the seller, meaning that he must act in the best interest of his principal seller, which also means he cannot simultaneously act in your best interest. You can only have a fiduciary obligation to one person. Tag, you're not it. So I
Um,
really don't do that to yourself. You may end up on the short end of the stick if no one is supporting or otherwise looking out for your interest. Gentle reminder, don't cheap out on yourself. Pay the
right,
commission and be happy that you do get what you pay for. So,
right. And just think, I mean, the house being such a big investment that you're going to have for a long time. So why do people quibble about the little dollars? I mean, I say little, but I mean, I've seen some people quibbling about the smallest things. It's just strange, but it's a mindset. But that's why we're here, right? That's why we're here. So before we
before we
share
share every
everything you get when you hire a buyer's agent, let's talk about some things. The buyer has many options when buying a home. For best results, just a few reminders. You want to get pre-qualified, please, before you contact a realtor, please. Know your buying power so you avoid the disappointments. And that's why we're repeating these things. If it wasn't an issue, we wouldn't, right? Know what you want. And we went through a lot of that on our last one, all the different things to consider. Know what you want. You're buying a lifestyle. So, what are your musts and what are your deal breakers? Because there are. You don't just go la-di-da, oh, it's okay, and some other things. Know your wants, musts, haves, and the deal breakers, because typically there are. Create a budget. Did we say create a budget? Why do you create a budget? Well, your top three, first of all, you're going to have a down payment. So you still need to check for special loan programs. Plan on about 3% of the purchase price toward the escrow fees. I mean, you can always ask for concessions from the sellers, but that's just one thing I want to point out. You need to search the specifications. You can instruct your realtor to only show you homes where the seller's agent is splitting the commission. And this sort of reminded me that we said, don't go out there just looking at everything. Tell your agent what you want, okay? So your realtor is really going to look for the best homes where they're located. They're going to give you a good workout, if you will, for what you want to go look at. So you can instruct, so as I said, you can instruct your realtor that you want the seller's agent to split the commission. This can eliminate or reduce the amount you pay out of pocket. So it's a possibility. Commissions are negotiable. I sort of feel like, it's kind of like life. A lot of things are negotiable, but why don't people think commissions are negotiable, right? Your realtor is a licensed, trained professional who does not work and never has worked for free. And why would anybody expect that? But I think sometimes people think that. Paying a reasonable service fee is expected, and your buyer's agreement will include the amount, flat fee, or percentage you and the agent agree upon. Once in writing, when you have this harebrained idea, no, once in writing, there are no additions or subtractions to the amount. So, ready to learn what you get when you pay a commission to a professional real estate consultant? Grab a pen, you're going to need it because, oh, Larisa has lots to tell you.
So, I did think about this, and I really want. Well, first of all, I'm always about educating folks. I want people to make an informed decision, and that is why when I'm talking to my team or my staff at work, I it's like there's Larissa with all her words, but it's not. Whenever you make your decision, it won't be because you didn't know up front. So let's talk about the commission. First of all, commissions, starting with the letter C, if you will, consultations that can grow into a unique business relationship that supports you and your goals for the long term. This is not a transactional relationship. So, again, we just want you to understand that, like if you go get your taxes done, you're going to have to pay. This is a person who's gone through many, many years of schooling. They have to get, what's it called? Continuing education requirements, right? They're going to go back and they have to take certain courses every year, periodically. So do realtors, right? They have spent a lot of time on this, and I recommend you lean into their, frankly, superior knowledge about the industry. Work with a consultant who takes a deep dive with you. That is going to serve you in the long term. And, we all sometimes, if I do, I know a lot of people like going to open houses. And well, depends on the neighborhood, I suppose, and the price point. But let your realtor be your open house guide, because you know what? There can be some beautiful staging, which I may have fallen in love with the staging when I bought this house. It's easy to
Mhm.
fall in love with a beautifully staged home. Conversely,
Mhm.
the house may still be occupied, making it difficult to see maintenance or structural issues you need to be concerned with. Your realtor has the eagle eye. They see it all, especially someone like myself who's been in property management for so long. I see all the things because I started off as a housing inspector. Did you? You didn't know
Mhm.
that. Well, now you
Mhm.
do. So I'm always looking for all the things. I love the staging because I like nesting, but I'm also looking for what's underneath all the pretty. Okay, okay.
Mhm.
And you certainly need a municipality code breaker. Depending on what city you buy in, we talked about your escrow fees, the fees will change because cities, well, everyone wants to get, they need to pay for government services. Let me say it that way. But consider there may be sewer lateral repairs. I didn't know what that was until I started selling homes in Oakland. Well, now I know, but it is a thing. And what I didn't know, for example, there are in this one Bay Area, and probably I would say on the East Coast too, for older communities that have, started in the 1800s or whenever they started. Um, what do you call those? Septic tanks. There's a lot of buried septic
That's what
tanks.
I was thinking about when you were talking was because yeah, we have septic tanks here too.
Yeah, and not all of them, you have to know that somehow. You're supposed to find out about that and be able to tell your buyer about that. So there's a lot of things to look out for. What I say, sewer lateral,
And
septic
and
tanks.
and, and let me just one little qualifier. People buy land here
Mm,
to build a home on.
hmm.
So even new homes can have septic tanks, but they didn't really don't really get the septic tank business aspect. So yeah, it's not just for older homes. People have land that
Right.
want to build on. So it's something that you should always understand.
Yeah, and that's some I wasn't, well, I didn't intend to imply that it was just older homes. I'm saying if the community is old, has been around
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. San Francisco, the gold rush, so it was been way back when.
Mm-hmm.
So they do have a lot of older homes, and as you say, older plots of land. The old homes are gone, but the land is still there and the tank is still there. Transfer fees, I'm just saying, so many rules with dollar signs attached. So you have to understand how these and more can impact the transaction and your wallet. Your realtor can help. There's a lot of moving parts. Again, the cities, they all have their own thing. They all want to get paid. Now, you'll not a surprise, but they're going to be able to help you with the market analysis and frankly give you a reality check. Blaring headlines do not always tell the whole story. Again, it's location, location. May I use the word location? What's happening in one zip code doesn't necessarily impact the neighborhood or block that you're touring.
Mm-hmm.
What do the numbers really mean in terms of how it impacts the home that you are looking at or want to buy? Oh, and this is now an official biggie. Insurance research and comparison shopping. Difficulty securing or the inability to find coverage for your new home can turn the whole thing into a deal breaker. Lenders are not going to let you buy a house without insurance. So you want to start that process early on. Lean into your agent's connections and industry knowledge in this important area. Now, again, it might be localized, but definitely in California, insurance companies are leaving the state. I've heard the same thing in Florida. I can't remember how you guys doing in OH.
I haven't heard that happening yet,
Oh,
but
what
I
about the
wouldn't be
drones? Are the
surprised.
drones flying over telling, "Oh, you have this in your backyard. We're not going to cover you guys
Yeah, we
anymore."
got we got got the drone activity.
These darn
Mhm.
drones, man. Ugh.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
there's so much to consider with insurance. It is now officially a thing.
Hmm.
Um, your agent can help you with savings during and after escrow closes, right? So we're looking at all the documents, we're looking at all the inspection reports. Um, there are so many financial decisions throughout the home buying process, from shopping for the best to loan terms. We talk about that a lot because it is so important, and you do have choices. I just need people to understand you have choices, but it starts with knowing what questions to ask.
Right.
Um, you know, or hiring professionals during the contingency period. Contingency means like, well, I'm going to buy your home if these things are in order. You want to
Hmm.
take advantage of the contingency uh, aspect. Do not let anyone. This is what happens when people go to the seller's listing agent, right? And they say, "Oh, you can sign this. You don't need any contingencies. It's a great place." Yeah, don't listen to that. They're not looking out for you. Your consultant can help you choose wisely. Speaking of which, how about service and vendor referrals? Well, all things being equal, you sign on the
Hmm.
dotted line. Hopefully, you will be moving soon. They can help you with movers, plumbers, handymen, electricians, contractors, and everyone in between. You will need a referral from a trusted resource during and after escrow closes. So I invite you to lean into your agent's Rolodex. They got the hookup.
True.
Now, uh, consider inspection, review, and deciphering all the jargon. Now, if you've never bought a home before, you don't necessarily realize how many reams of paper that you're going to have to read through and sign.
Mhm.
And what that word was, read. Again, we want you to be an informed consumer. So one inspection you don't want to pass up is the home inspection. This is a trained professional who will check the home from stem to stern, as the saying goes, and prepare a report on the condition of the home. Now, you 200% want to review this report and determine whether the finding opens new negotiation items. What if there's dry rot? Do you want to ask the seller to pay for it? Or, what if, I don't know, the windows are outdated? Do you want to ask the seller to give you what's it called? A credit on the escrow, right? To help put toward that. You probably don't want to ask them to buy the whole windows because that's a lot, but
Mhm.
you can ask for a credit. So also not only the inspection, but you have disclosures and optional inspections like a roof inspection. Depending on how old it is, you might want to cough up a couple of dollars and do that. Again, do not cheap out on yourself. Permits. When I first started showing homes in Oakland, or maybe, well, showing, yeah, was that COVID? Anyway, I would
Mhm.
see some of these older homes, and it was what is that called? A maze. Some people, I don't know if it was DIY, unscrupulous
Oh,
contractors, but they just took a room and stuck it here, and then they took another room and then they stuck it there, and it's like you felt like you needed a map to get through some of these homes, and I was like, this is
oh
not attractive.
wow.
First of all,
Mm.
well, extended families, I get it. You want to make space for everybody, but you want to do it
Mm.
aesthetically, intelligently, and may I use the word with permits? Because some of these things.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking,
Uh,
do they have
that's
permits?
what I'm saying.
Ah,
How would someone sign off on this? I don't know.
I know.
Maybe they
Right.
would. Maybe it doesn't have to be pretty to get a permit, but I'm like, oof.
Mm.
So that's the thing.
Interesting.
When you see an addition to a home that was not part of the original square footage, you 200% need to check for permits. So, we got to
That's
get in the
right.
weeds on these things. That's what your realtor does.
Hmm.
So many documents written in industry language unfamiliar to the layman. So another set of eyes is critical. Now, let's just go ahead and talk about the basics. How about the offer prep and submittal? Phew, that is a lot of paperwork. I I just don't even know. I mean, I think the offer itself is 16 pages. And then you have all the disclosures and the fair housing, you got the wiring warning, and then you got the, not citizenship, but foreign declaration. You have documents. And in
Hmm.
California, you have
Just,
extra documents because we're in
yeah.
California.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's what we do. We stack them up. So with your input and direction, of course, the agent completes the official stack of paper, which expresses your interest and terms for an offer to purchase. Now, it's it's just taking, these are my wishes, these are my terms, this is what I'm going to do, and then we have to put it in a form that makes it legal. So so much to go, so much to review. And then frankly, negotiations. Okay. So it sounds like we saved the best for last because this is where the good stuff happens. This is when you do the little whole back and forth thing because you make an offer and the offer, the seller may counter. Well, this, and this is okay, but I'm not excited about this. So this is my offer. You can go back and forth. Let's not make it crazy, folks. So, but you do want to come to an agreement where it's a win-win for each side. So there is some back and forth. There are, and what? Why, yes, this does require additional paperwork. Um, so while the agent is not legally part of the transaction, they do provide the information and clarifications to help you submit a competitive offer. There's not a lot of inventory. So when you make your offer, you want hopefully the seller to say yes first time around without the back and forth, but you also want him to say yes, he's going to take your offer instead of that person's offer. So you guys need to have that conversation. It helps balancing the terms because sometimes terms are better than the dollars. Like maybe you need time to sell your old home, or maybe the seller needs time to buy a new home, so he wants to rent it back
Mm-hmm.
from you. So
Hmm.
those are what are called terms. This can happen if, when you hear the word if, that's a term. So again, you can decide terms, price, what's most important to you before you guys come to the handshake. Go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, so what do you think about, it depends on where you are, but seller's market, although in some places it's now becoming a buyer's market, where, you as a realtor have worked so hard to put out an offer on behalf of your client. And maybe we should mention about, but a lot of them are over the requested
Over
price,
asking
right?
price.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Again, as you say, depends on the market. If it's a
mhm,
buyer's market, um, yeah, not so much. It's going to be low. It could be lower, but a seller's market, which
exactly.
means again, there's not a lot of inventory, so they hold all the cards, or they hold the goods,
Mhm.
and there are more people looking. So it could be competitive, not quite as egregious as in years past, but again, location, depending on where you're buying. Yes, there are still uh, bidding wars is what was happening then. Right now, there is could be a little bump. I was just looking at, for example, I have a new relisting in Gilroy, and the stats show that you know they show what the price homes were for a period of time, like a month, what the homes were offered for versus what they closed at. And in Gilroy, they were at 100. The sellers were getting the prices that they asked for, but there was a
Mhm.
little caveat that some of the houses were like quote unquote 1 to 3% over. So not a huge amount depending on what the base of the home is, but yes. On the other hand, the other headline, and I didn't click on it because I mean, they're just scrambling for something to write about, honestly, because there's just
Mhm.
there's not a lot of activity because there's not a lot of inventory. And what the headline said is that a lot of sellers are pulling their homes off the market at a record pace because when people who bought during COVID, they have these very low interest rates, like 2 or 3%. Whereas if you want to buy now, gentle persons, it is not 2 or 3%.
Right.
It's it just barely cracked under 6%, either early this year or late last year, but the last number that I saw was over 6%. Again,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
horrible. When I bought my rental in what do you call that place? Vegas, it's five and change. So
Mhm. Mhm.
people still have covert memories, I suppose, but you
Right.
got you got
Yeah.
you gotta let go. Which is not to
Right.
say those percentages on the interest rate do impact the payment that you buy, but your monthly payment. But there are ways to get around that. But anyway, the last word for commissions, the S is you have support throughout the process. Hello. This goes without saying as
That's
to
the
what you
best
should
part.
expect
Mhm.
from your agent. And paying for value received is due and proper. So I hope that we have shed some light on all the things that you get when you pay that commission. It's not you just writing a check. You're getting value above and beyond, she said, because she knows. Okay.
And as you said, the best part, support. Buying a home is not easy. Buying a home requires a lot of expertise. So you really, hopefully digest all this, go back and think about it and read about it. So she gave you an earful, and it's good information. And buyers agency agents previously paid by the split. Buyers agents were previously paid by the split from the listing agent, but they've never worked for free, and now you know why. And I always kind of frown when I hear somebody who, has a story about this because, I mean, really. So, recent changes in the industry have brought about more transparency, which I think is good for, in transactions and opportunities for clear communications and client satisfaction. That was needed. In some ways, you'll have somebody, whether it's trying to get through the lender or, all the pieces that affect the buying situation. It is good that there's more transparency, and which always should lead to clearer communications. So, for more reminders about the worth of a real estate consultant, make sure you listen to episode 257. And in that one, we expanded the conversation about the benefits of working with a professional real estate consultant. So this to me is one of our more impactful series that can go a long ways towards really a lifelong satisfactory event for you. So, with that being said, we got one more episode to go for Home Ownership Month. So be sure to tune in next week's episode and make sure to sign up for this month's complimentary educational workshop this Friday, Saturday, and next Saturday. So we're talking June 19th, June 20th, and the 27th, where there will be details in the podcast description. Also on Larisa's Instagram account at Larisa Home and Realty. So please register today. You will not regret it.
All right. Well, I'm pretty excited about this month's series because, we've been doing this for 6 seasons, people. And
Mm,
every season we've done a I think, home ownership month.
mhm,
So if you just, I'm like, okay, what else can I say at this point? But I dug deep, and I hope you are enjoying it, and go back and check the previous seasons too. All righty. With that, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate your time. And if you found value, please do share this episode. We will see you next time. Ciao.